Okay, so it's been over a year, I think, since I posted my last video, minus the one that I did yesterday. But I said in that video that I would update you guys because it's like I said, it's been a while. I've kind of fallen off the face of the planet for you guys, and I'm sorry. I've opened up The Sims just because I don't know what else to do. But I don't know how much of this I'm actually gonna play. But I do want to just kind of give everyone a bit of an update on where I've been, what I've been doing, all of that good stuff. I don't expect any viewers in this stream, which is fine. I just don't honestly feel like filming and then editing and then uploading. So a stream is so much easier. But I want to start off by just giving kind of an overview of my life in general because it's been a while. I don't know how many people know or remember, honestly, or care about that, but I'm going to do it anyway. And I'm going to try to find a house to contemporary. That's not how contemporary. Yep, that's good. So, when I was a little girl, I'm going to start all the way from the beginning because it's a lot. I was adopted when I was, I think, 18 or 20 months old. And my adoptive mother, who I consider, my mom, we lived together very happily until I was about 12 or 13. She's pretty much had cancer my entire life, and that's not that that's all I've known her for, but that's just kind of how it's been. Like, she's just always had cancer. I remember, I think when I was really little, I want to say I was maybe 4. She's had cancer on and off, but I want to say when I was 4, around Christmas time, is when she got the news that it had come back. And then since then, she had always had it. And then when I was 12, I want to say, she passed away from cancer. And that was a very big pivot and turning point in my life. I moved in with family friends who I love dearly, and honestly consider them more family than my actual family that I was adopted into. So, like, my mom's side of the family, I don't talk to them very often. They don't really talk to me very often. There's no, bad blood there. It's just kind of how things worked out. I hate this wallpaper, by the way. And so after that, after I moved in with, my family, friends, and all of that good stuff, everything was okay. I was a struggling girl. I'd gone through a very traumatic event, a very traumatic loss for me because my mother never married, and so therefore I, didn't have a father, I guess, in my life to kind of, take over. Hence why I went and lived with family friends, which again is fine. I love them to death. But it was just a very difficult time for me. I was, like I said, 12 going on 13 when all of this happened. And so I wasn't old enough to learn how to process those kinds of emotions. And I, was just having a hard time. And so fast forward a little bit. I need to turn this on. Hold on. That makes everything so much easier. But fast forward a little bit. I grow up. I move out at 18. I buy a house at 19 with the help of, the money that my mother left over for me, which again was, a very privileged thing for me to have. I've had so many people ask me, how do you save up for a house? Because the housing market right now is trash. But, I get so many questions of people who are like, how do I save up money to buy a house? The housing market is crazy. How did you do it? And it's like, well, you see, my mom died, and so therefore I have a house. And so that's, not the answer that everyone is looking for, and I understand that. But, it was just the way that life was. This black does not match. And so after that, I let me backtrack a little bit. I'm literally going to break down everything and then I'm probably going to disappear forever. So I'm just going to leave you with that. But when I was in 7th grade, I started dating this guy who was a piece of trash, if I have ever known someone to be that way. And he just was not, he wasn't a good person. He was very, manipulative, very just not a good person. And that really also kind of destroyed a lot of, self confidence that I had, any sort of, anything. He would call me names, terrible names. And he would tell me, because also at the time I was dealing a lot with my mental health and I was self harming. And so at one point he told me, well, how can I date a girl with scars on both her arms? Meanwhile, he was also self harming. So I thought that was a little bit ironic for him to be saying that, but he did anyway. Basically isolated me, wouldn't let me, talk to any of my friends, especially if they were guys, was definitely, hey, Steven, how's it going? Was basically, just a terrible person all around. And so I was also getting to a point where I was like, not sure how to feel about myself, not sure, I was just very unsure about life as a whole. And I was a very rebellious teen in some sense, but not all the sense. I was not a terrible kid. I was just a troubled kid. And so after that whole relationship, I, went to high school, and high school was a lot better. My mental health was getting better. But still, I was struggling. And then in high school, I met another guy who, we started dating, and I thought, well, he's so much better than this other person that I had been with. I think I want a double stove. He was just a lot better than the other people I had been in relationships with, especially my last one, who was, very abusive. And so when he came around, I thought, this is love. This is what love feels like. This is what it's supposed to be. And at the time it was not terrible. So many people that we were friends with would come over to us and tell us, you guys are so cute together. And they would tell us things like, he always talks about you and he's your biggest fan. And, obviously that made me feel really good. And then we moved out. I moved out of, the people who had taken me in. I moved out of their house when I was 18 and had rented an apartment with my then boyfriend in high school. And things were going well. And then that apartment was not great. It was really sketchy. And so we moved out. And we moved out of that place in, I don't know when, but we moved out of there. And I really, after that, things just kind of did not go super well. I don't like how uneven this is. I don't know if I should put a third stove there, but I feel like that's too much. But he was just not the best person. And so he wanted a new car. He had a truck that his parents had given him when he, was able to drive, but he wanted a new car. And I was like, that's fine. And he said, can I, hold off on paying for bills for a little bit so that I can, pay for this car. And I said, that's fine. Which was my mistake because he never ended up paying the bills ever again. And so then we moved into our own house. What is this, black or is this black? That's black. I bought my first house when I was 19. And that's the house that I lived in for a few years. I want to say 3 or 4 years. Again, he never paid the bills, never did anything like that. So that was really super awesome. And I was getting really fed up with it. And I had a lot of friends. Well, I didn't have a lot of friends, but I had enough friends at the time where, I was talking to them. I was explaining my situation. And it just, so many people tell me the same thing. They told me, that's not good. You talk to him about that. And maybe you should leave him. And to me, that wasn't really an option, which I don't really know why, but it just wasn't. So I didn't listen to anyone, and I very much should have. But after that, me and my ex, or my boyfriend at the time, we had talked about, getting married, because we had been together since our freshman year in high school. We were, high school sweethearts. We had lived together for, 3 plus 4 years at that time. So it was really kind of the next logical step. And so I just assumed that, oh, well, we're gonna get married. And I was not entirely unhappy with the relationship. I would say that I was just not content with a lot of things. But I was just kind of letting it happen. I guess I would say I was content. I was just accepting it, I guess. I wasn't happy about it, but excuse me, I was just like, okay, well, we're just gonna let it be. So that happened, and for a while, I kept asking him, when are we gonna get married? Like, when are you gonna propose to me? And he kept saying, all of these excuses, really. And excuses that I should not have put up with for as long as I did. He really wanted to. Oh, my husband is Snapchatting me. Yes, it's raining. So my ex at the time, we'll call him Mike, he, hadn't been paying the bills since we lived in our apartment, didn't start paying the bills when we moved into our house. But again, the next logical course of action for me was, let's get married. And so due to that, it really bugged him about it, because in my head I was like, I'm ready, like, I want to get married, like, let's do this. And he just kept pushing it off. And I told him, I said, what is it going to take for us to get married and for you to get a ring and propose? And this is red flag number 700. He told me that he wanted a motorcycle and he wanted to have a threesome. And in my head, I was like, listen, I was a good girlfriend, okay? Well, let me rephrase this. I was very desperate for attention and very desperate for validation, and really prioritized other people's happiness over mine. That doesn't necessarily make me a good girlfriend or a, great thing, but that's, what happened. And so I said, okay, like, let's find you a bike, and you can get a motorcycle. That's fine. And I will look around and try to find other women for you to sleep with, which obviously, now that I say it out loud, I've, come to that conclusion a long time ago, but obviously that was not an okay thing. It's not okay for someone to have conditions in order for them to marry you. That's just, it's not good, not a good thing. And so I did it, though. I tried my very hardest to find, people who would be willing to do that sort of thing. And shockingly, there were not a lot. There were plenty of people who were like, you and I can, you can join in with me and my partner, but we are not interested in your partner. And so that's what I found kind of around every corner. So I told him this, not so much that, oh, they don't want to sleep with you. They just want to sleep with me because they don't like you. But, in a nicer way of just like, hey, this isn't like really working out. And so that was a good enough reason for him. So he went out, he bought a wedding ring, and he bought a motorcycle. I'm pretty sure on the same day. Why am I in here? And we went out. And he never proposed. So I went with him to go pick up the ring. And the ring sat on his desk, his computer desk, forever. 4 many months, almost a year. Which honestly was not, like, again, I've had this conversation with many people since then, but people told me, and it's true, that if someone loves you, if someone wants to be with you, they are not going to sit on a wedding ring for 8 months going on a year. They're gonna be excited, they're gonna want to propose like immediately. And so I started talking to one of my friends, and she was a good friend of mine at the time, and we were just having this conversation, and I told her, because I had filed for marriage papers or marriage license, I told her this, and she goes, oh, I didn't know he proposed to you. And I said, he didn't. He did not propose to me. He has a ring and is just waiting. But I decided that I was tired of waiting, so I was going to get the process started. And the more I talked, the more things started to click in my brain, where I was like, this isn't good, is it? And I'm pretty sure at one time she looks at me and goes, Emily, that's so sad. And I think after that, I was like, yeah, you know what? I think you're right. I think that is sad. And so I started to become good friends with my now husband at that time. And my boyfriend at the time was, at work. He worked very late nights. And so I texted him, my now husband. Well, you can know his name. His name's Grayson. He's been on my channel before. Texted Grayson and I said, hey, I'm having like a life existential crisis. Like, do you want to meet up and we can just like talk about it? And he goes, sure. So we meet up. I tell him, all of my feelings around the situation. And he was like, well, what do you think I'm going to say? And I'm going to say, you're going to tell me to leave him because that's what everyone has told me to do. And he goes, not necessarily. He said, I think you need to do what's going to make you happy. And if that's leaving him, then okay. And if it's not, then I hope that he changes for you and, can make you happy. And that was like the first realization in my brain that like this person, of someone else prioritizing my happiness, of someone else, and like even I wasn't prioritizing my happiness, but just having someone validate that like you should be happy in your relationship and you shouldn't settle. And you shouldn't let people, say these things or do these things that, aren't right. And so that opened up this huge can of worms of, yeah, I really need to start thinking about what I'm doing with my life and how I'm, it's way too big. I need like an in-between, and because this gives a weird shadow, but it's fine. I'll put sconces on around it. But anyway, so Grayson was just really supportive in that time. And when we broke up, me and my ex, Mike, at the time, it was horrendous. Like, not for me necessarily, like, not in that, like, I don't know. It was just so, he just drug it out so long. And he basically said he took his sweet time. He took his very, very sweet time moving out of my house, doing really sketchy shit, made me very uncomfortable because, he had guns in the house and he was making these, idle threats about, offing himself. And, I had dealt with that with my other relationship in middle school. He was also a raging narcissist, also very much threatened to off himself if I ever left him. Just not things that people who tell you they love you should do to you. And so I knew at that point I was like, this is not how this is gonna go. So I wasn't mean necessarily. I was just not putting up with it anymore. So I moved out of my own house that I was paying for and went and stayed with John and Debbie, who are, the parents who took me in after my mom died. I moved in with them. Yo, what's up? And I stayed there for a few days, and eventually I was like, why am I still living in this house when I could be living in my own house that I'm paying the bills for, that this person who I'm not dating anymore is living in? And so I texted Mike, and I said, you have 4 hours to get the fuck out of my house. Like, this is not fair to me. Like, this is my house. I pay the bills in here. Like, why am I the one who's, staying over at my parents' house? Like, you need to get out. So he threw a fit about it and was like, there's not enough time. And I'm like, I don't care. I said, I don't care if your stuff isn't out of the house. I said, I'm going to come home. I know it's been a while since I was on Twitch. It's been a while since I've been on YouTube too, but you know how it is. I'm getting there. We're starting from the beginning. We're making our way to today. But I told him, I said, I don't care if you're in the house or your stuff's in the house, but you need to be out of the house. Like your body, you physically need to be out of my house by the time that I get home, or else I will call the police and I will have you removed from my house, because I was really just fed up with everything. So it worked out. I came home and he was gone, and I, not that I thought that that was, the end of it, but I kind of thought like, okay, like the worst is over. Like I've at least gotten him out of my house. And then came the very long, arduous process of getting him to actually get all of his things out of my house, which was another very long process. He just kept making up excuses and all of this other shit. And then eventually, the only thing that was left was his garage stuff. Like, he had bought this stupid car. Okay, the car is not stupid. It was an RX-7. It was a nice car, except it wasn't, because it was in really shitty condition. It had literally no engine in it. The engine had been taken out. It was his project car, the, oh, I'm going to fix it up car. Did he ever fix it up? No. But that's a window into the bathroom. I don't want that there. He never fixed up the car. Shocker. But it sat in my garage with no battery forever. And I told him, I said, you need to get this car out of my garage. And in the meantime, while he was doing all of this, he was sending me texts about like, oh, like I miss you so much, I'll change, all that, good stuff that men do when they realize that, they're in deep shit. And at that point, as a woman, you kind of reach a point where once you decide that you're done, you're done. Like there's no going back. At least that's how it was for me, and how it has been for me with pretty much every major decision that I've made in my life. Like once I've like solidly made up my mind, like I get this gut feeling of like, yes, this is this decision I've made and I'm sticking with it. There's no changing my mind. There's no going back. So that's how I was with my relationship. It was very much, there's nothing that you could say that could possibly make me want to come back and be with you. I'm going to take this window out. I don't know if it's going to look weird, but I'm going to take both of these windows out. And so he very much didn't. He tried really hard to, get back on my good side and tell me how much he loved me, tell me how much he would change, tell me how much money he would give me, because I told him, you never paid for any of the fucking house stuff. Like I paid for literally everything. And he was like, I'll sell my truck, I'll sell, my bike, like I just, want to get back together with you, like all of this stuff. One of the things he said to me, which was honestly so out of pocket, was, well, one time he came over because he was like, I'm gonna go work on my car to get it running so I can get it out of here. And I'm like, fine, whatever. Doesn't work on his car. Instead comes into my house and is like, can I ask you a question? And I'm like, what could you possibly ask me right now? And it was the most unhinged question that I think I've ever heard from someone. But he goes, so I was talking to some guy friends at work, and they told me that when a guy finishes in you, that it like just leaks throughout the day. I just looked at him like, did you think before you spoke words? Because I don't think that you did. That was just the most out of pocket thing that I had ever heard come out of his mouth. But I was like, no, that's not how that happens. That's not how that works. Please and thank you, leave. So he ends up following me. He literally follows me around the house, doesn't go in the garage at all to do a single thing, because he's like, oh, well, I don't have the right tools with me. And I'm like, then why did you come over here in the first place? But that's besides the point, apparently. But he comes over, he follows me around the house, he asks me these stupid questions, and then proceeds to continue to follow me around the house like a lost puppy. I'm literally trying to seem as uninterested as possible. It was the most bizarre thing I've ever heard in my life, but it gets worse, trust me. But he says a lot of other things. I'm walking around the house and I'm like trying to seem as uninterested, trying to seem as busy as possible. I'm literally dusting, like I'm dusting the blinds, I'm dusting, everything. And I finally just sit down on the couch because I'm like, I have cleaned this house from top to bottom. I don't know what else to do until he leaves. So I sit down on the couch and I start playing Crash Bandicoot on PS4, which is such a good game. I love that game. But I'm playing this game, and eventually he finally leaves. Like, he's trying to talk to me about the game, he's trying to talk to me in general, and I'm just like giving him like, yeah, okay, like one word answers, like trying to give him the strongest hint possible. Like, I don't care what you have to say. I'm not interested. Like, you came here, told me you were going to do this thing. You're not doing that thing. Like, why are you still here? So eventually he leaves. Eventually he's like, okay, well, I got to go. And I'm like, bye, get out. So then later on down the road, me and my now husband Grayson, we go on a beach trip with John and Debbie, my family. And while we're there, we're, chatting, we're having a great time. And my ex texts me, and I was like, I don't want to deal with this, because Grayson and him were still kind of friends. They were still talking. They were on a speaking basis still. They are not anymore, but they were still on a speaking terms. And so they were talking, and I told Grayson, I said, I don't want to deal with this. So he takes my phone. And the reason why Grayson was there, one, he wanted to be there, but two, he swung it by my ex because he was like, oh, well, like, I'll keep an eye on her for you. Meanwhile, we were sleeping in the same bed, but that's besides the point. But Grayson was talking to him. I gave him my phone. I said, I don't want to deal with this right now. So Grayson starts texting him, pretending to be me, and it's just like going off. He's like, you couldn't even get me off. Like, you never wash your hair. Like, you're smelly, you're greasy, like, all just like going in on this man. And honestly, like, I didn't care. All of it was true. But it backfired on him, on Grayson, because then my ex calls him on his phone and is like, "Well, he's being so mean to me." And he's like crying. I went to bed, and I woke up at like 2, 3 in the morning to like 10 missed calls, a bunch of text messages from this guy, and all of the missed calls, a couple of voicemails where he's just crying. And I'm like, oh, what is happening? So I wake up to all of this, and Grayson is not in the bed with me. So I'm like, where is he? So I we were at the beach. So we have a door that opens out onto our own private little patio, and he's out there on the phone, and I'm like, what are you doing? And he just looks at me and he goes, he called me. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, have fun with that. And then I went back to bed. And so one of the text messages that I received from him was, again, your normal, typical, I miss you so much, I promise I'll change type of thing. And then it turned into, trying to give me compliments, like, you're so pretty, like, I get so nervous around you still because you're so pretty. And then he goes, you have a really nice rack. And I'm like, okay. And then he told me that I had, a famed Asian vagina. And I said, a what? And I screenshotted it and I sent it to Grayson. And I was like, tell me what this means, because I don't think I know what this means. And he was like, I literally had to read that like 3 times because I thought it said framed, and then I was really confused as to why he said that. And I said, yeah, okay, so it's not just me. I was also very confused as to why this man thought like, yes, this is the, again, appropriate response to make to a person. So that happened. And then at another point in time, I'm just gonna shit all over my ex because I don't think I've told this story, but at another point in time, obviously he wasn't living with me in the house anymore, so I had a larger house than I needed for 2 people, and definitely a larger house than I needed for myself. So I had a couple of spare bedrooms, and I had a friend who was just kind of down on their luck, and they were like, hey, like, I just really need a place to stay. They're trans, and their parents just don't support them, so he was like, I can't go home. I just need somewhere to crash for a little bit. I'm trying to find a job right now, so once I find one, I promise I'll pay you back once I get a job. And I was like, honestly, I have gone so long without someone paying me for shit. I don't care, like, come over, it's fine. So they come over, and I'm showing them the room they're gonna stay in, just going over basic house rules, like, listen, I don't care what you do, just if you smoke, go outside. I don't want that smell in the house. And if you have friends over, it's really not a big deal. Like, just don't trash my house. Like, don't throw ragers at my house. Like, if you want to have friends over, I really don't care. You don't have to tell me you're having friends over. Just obviously be courteous of my space and my property. He literally didn't even stay there for like 24 hours. So it ended up being fine anyway. But he comes over, I'm sitting there, I'm getting him the house rules, and I'm telling him about, if you smoke, go outside. And I don't know if he thought like cigarette smoke or like other smoke, but he was like, talking about the Mary Jane, and he was like, "Do you still smoke?" And I said, "Nah, I haven't done that in a really long time, but I still have my bong because it's cool, and I just it's been a while." So he's like, "Oh well, I bet my bong's better than yours," and I'm like, "Okay, bet." So I go get it. That's been sitting in my closet, literally collecting dust. And I show it to him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, it looks a lot like mine." And I'm like, "Yeah, cool." And then I go and I sit it on my dresser in the bedroom. Well, then the next day, I get a text from my ex, and he was basically like, "I want to come over, I want to see the pets." And I was like, "Fine, whatever. I'm actually not going to be home, which is great for me, so I'll let you in. Just text me when you're there," because I had changed. We have one of those doors that have the keypad entry to unlock the door instead of like a physical key. So I said, "Text me when you get there and unlock the door," because I had changed the code on the door because I didn't want him to know it, obviously. So he does, and I'm at work. And at the time, I was working at an art gallery with my stepdad, and he comes in, my stepdad, and is like, "Your grandmother called me," which was also very out of pocket because my grandmother and my newfound parents did not get along. They were very much not a good blended family. They tried to kind of like co-parent, even though my grandmother really shouldn't be parenting me because that's not her job. Her job is to be my grandmother. But yeah, she was just very resentful that I had gone to live with them and not stayed and lived with her, even though we were having literally a terrible time with our relationship. And so for her to call them was just very strange because again, she doesn't like them. So I was like, "Why did she call you? Cuz that doesn't make sense in my head." And he goes, "She told me that she heard from a reliable source that you were doing drugs." And I said, "That's that's weird. That's suspicious. Like why would she think that?" And he told me that, I don't know. That's just what she said, and she wouldn't tell me who she heard it from. She just said it was a reliable source. And I said, "Okay, why?" And then I started to put pieces together in my head, and I realized that when Mike had come over to my house to see the pets, he claims that it was because he was looking for the cat, and so he went into the bedroom. Which at that point in my mind, I was like, "This is like the bedroom is now my personal space. You no longer should go in there because we no longer share it, and now it is mine and only mine, and I don't feel comfortable with you being in there." But clearly that didn't matter to him. So he went into the bedroom, saw the bong sitting on the table, made the assumption that I was, smoking pot, even though I wasn't, and then thought after that that the best course of action would be to call my 82-year-old grandmother and not tell her that I was smoking weed, but tell her that I was doing drugs, because that makes a whole lot of sense. So I was livid. I was so angry because, like, my grandmother is, I love her to death. She means very well. She's not the nicest woman I've ever met in my life, but she's also one of those people who, makes very quick assumptions about things. So for her to get the news that I'm doing drugs, like, her mind is going to go to heroin, cocaine, like all of those things, like hardcore drugs, and like that was not it. And I was so pissed that he would put that thought into her brain. And so I called him. I chewed him out. I yelled at him over the phone. I was like, "You're not coming back to the house. You have lost your privileges to come into my house. Like, that is unacceptable. That is ridiculous." So then after that, things kind of calmed down. He had that stupid car in my garage. I told him, I looked up the law. I said, "You have 30 days to get this car out of my house," which technically I should have given him less because it had definitely been there longer than 30 days. But since he had technically officially moved out, I was like, "You have 30 days from today to get this out of my garage, or else I'm going to sell it, because then legally it becomes my property." because it's considered abandoned, and the person who owns that property that the other person's property was abandoned on, it's considered yours. So I said, I'm gonna sell it. Like, I'm gonna part it out, or I'm just gonna sell the whole thing. I'm like, it's gonna be mine, and you don't have the title to it. I can get a title to it. I will, take those extra steps and do it. But I'm gonna sell it. And that got him. I would say it got him up and moving really quick. It didn't. He literally waited to the very last day to come and get it. So that was super great. So that was the first, the second relationship that I had been in, which wasn't great, but I met Grayson through it, and then I got married to Grayson, which, things worked out for the better. So fast forwarding a little bit, backtracking and also fast forwarding, at the point in time where I was trying to find, a person who would be willing to join us, in the bedroom, I came across Grayson had this friend who I asked him, and I said, hey, do you know anyone who would be interested in something like this? And he goes, actually, I think I do. And I was like, super, that would be great. Point me in the right direction. So he points me to his friend. And she, I'll call her Amy, she, was very nice, very sweet, very fun to be around, for a little bit. There's also a story there that I'll get into. Honestly, I'm just going to sit here and I'm going to talk because this is distracting me, and I want to get this over with before Grayson comes home from work. But we started talking, we started chatting. She was not interested, obviously, which is fine. But I really, I tried. I tried to be a good girlfriend, a good fiance, whatever it was, even though he never proposed to me. I tried. So after, all of that didn't work out, me and this girl started becoming good friends because me and Grayson, started dating officially. She really liked me. And every time she talked to Grayson, she was like, that's your wife, like all this other stuff. Even before we started dating, she would tell him that. And he was like, no, like she's dating this other guy. And she goes, that don't matter. Which it kind of seemed sketch on his part, on Grayson's part, but it really wasn't. Like, Grayson was very much a gentleman. He didn't like try to slide into those DMs, like, while I was still in a very open public relationship. He just wasn't shady like that. So after, I had officially broken things off with Mike, he then was more comfortable being more flirtatious and all of that good stuff. And so things were going really well, and me and Amy would hang out a lot, and we started becoming really good friends. And many years went by, and obviously COVID happened and all of that fun stuff. But finally, fast forward many years, me and Grayson had started talking seriously about getting married. And I was like, I feel like this is, a good choice for us. I feel very comfortable. I feel very, confident in our relationship. I'm very happy with how things are. Like, I, would like to get married to you. And he was not opposed to the idea. I will say that I was a little pushy, but I was not super aggressive with it. But I was, very much, again, I was just ready to settle down and to be with someone. So he proposed in January of 2022, so last year. And at the time, obviously, me and Amy had been really good friends. So we decided, I decided that she would be the best person to ask to be my maid of honor, because I was, we were just really good friends, and she was a girl, and I didn't have a whole lot of like female friends at the time, that I spoke to regularly or that I saw regularly. And I had seen her, pretty often. I had gone down to where she lived and, stayed the weekend with her. She had come up here, many times, to either stay with her parents, but, whenever she was in town, we would try to see each other. And so I asked her to be my maid of honor, and she happily accepted, and that was that. And I thought, okay, great. And I didn't expect her to do a whole lot, because she was also dealing with some, health problems. And I told her, and she lived, 3-4 hours away. So I was like, don't worry about anything. Like, just get a dress and show up, and it'll be, fine. It was not fine. And I'm not going to get into all of it, but I basically had to ask her to step down. She got really, really nasty with me and Grayson. I was not a bridezilla. Like, literally everyone who has been involved, or who was involved in my wedding planning process, like, knows that I am not like that. I'm not a confrontational person to begin with. So one, it was a lot for me to bring up and express, my discomfort with certain things, my stresses, my worries around certain things. And I was trying to express that to her regarding the wedding, and she just absolutely did not like it. She called me, a lot of names, told me a lot of things that I thought were really not warranted. Then Grayson tried to stick up for me, and she told him very nasty things. Was just very, very rude, very cruel, honestly. Which hurt my feelings. But I kind of came to the conclusion that I liked her a lot more than she liked me, in the sense that, like, I thought we were really good friends. I thought that we were really close, and we just weren't. I was just not. She was a priority friend to me, where I would, make plans, change plans. I should cover that up. Don't look at that back there. Actually, I'm gonna cover that up, because that will literally get me kicked off if I show what's back there. I like my anime figures, okay? Don't judge me, but I need to cover them because they're not family friendly. Okay. Sorry, I have to protect myself. But anyway, she was just really, really nasty. So I asked her to step down, and it just kind of blew up. And we are no longer friends. Her and Grayson are no longer friends. I'm not upset about it. He's not upset about it. I think she's the most upset about it, which honestly she should be, because honestly, at the end of the day, everything was her problem and her fault. I tried to be very respectful, very understanding of her feelings, and I tried to get her to see the same from my perspective on, having her understand how I felt, where I was coming from, and she just wouldn't. I had dealt with too many narcissists, and I was like, this is also another definition of a narcissist. You're not taking accountability or responsibility for literally anything that you're doing. Things that are very much in your control, and you're refusing to admit them, you're refusing to acknowledge them altogether. Like, I'm not going to do that today. Like, we're not putting up with that anymore. And I told myself at the beginning of that year of 2022, I told myself, I was like, I'm putting myself first. Like, we're not having this anymore. And so, was it the beginning of last year? No, the beginning of this year, I told myself that I'm putting myself first. That was my New Year's resolution. I'm not letting people step over me anymore. And so when I started to put my foot down on things, I started to get a lot of pushback, and I was like, well, that's that then. So we are no longer speaking. We're no longer friends. Again, I'm not upset about it. He's not upset about it. It showed me a lot of things about her that honestly I wish I would have known earlier, but it's fine. I ended up finding a different maid of honor who was actually, we've been friends for a really long time. We actually went to elementary school together, but we didn't talk a whole lot then, but we became really good friends, I want to say in high school. And he was a Mormon, and so he did the whole went to BYU, went on his missionary trip, did all of that good stuff, came back, and he's no longer Mormon, which is fine. It's perfectly fine by me. But it's so funny to see him, start to branch out and do things that are like non-Mormon. So I asked him to be my maid of honor, just because he's always been a really great person, a really great friend, someone who I knew I could depend on and rely on, and someone I knew would be there for me if I needed them to be. And he was absolutely that person. He, was so helpful, was so supportive, was just an amazing maid of honor. And his girlfriend is super sweet. She's just the cutest little thing, because she's so tiny. She's shorter than I am, and I'm 5'3". And she's just this tiny thing, but I love her to death. Her name's Ella. And his name is Zach, and they're just wonderful people. We're actually going to go see them this weekend. But anyway, so during the whole wedding planning process, that was really the only big thing, like big major blowout that I had. And I knew that wedding planning was going to be a little bit stressful. I knew that, we had started planning, I want to say in like March of last year, and we got married April of this year. So we had over a year to plan a wedding. And so for the most part, things were not super stressful. They were very manageable because we had had so much time to plan. But little things here and there like would stress me out, especially as we got closer. I don't think I was necessarily as stressed because we had everything all together, but I was just worried, like, oh, well, what if this happens or what if that happens? But really, like, my stress levels were relatively low for wedding planning. And Grayson and I, a lot of people, we had a friend who also got married recently, before us, and he, as we were planning our wedding, he was telling us like, oh, we'll be prepared to, fight about everything and argue about, how the wedding is going to go. And we just kind of looked at him like, we don't do that. We don't fight. Like, and I know I don't know, that's a statement that a lot of people have feelings about, but very truly and honestly, me and Grayson don't fight. We don't yell at each other. We don't scream at each other. We don't have, fighting matches with each other. We sit down and we talk and we have an adult conversation about things. And honestly, he kind of spoiled me in the fact that I was like, he's very, he's 28. They're going to be 28 this year. And so he was very much, he's mature. He's a mature man. And, that's saying a lot too, because a lot of men are not that way. But he was just very much, I want to fix whatever's happening. Like if something's wrong or if you're mad at me about something, I want to know what it is and I want to fix it and I'm going to do better. He apologized for things, which never happened in my life. All of the people that I had, ever said, hey, this thing upset me or this thing bothered me, he was like, all of my other relationships were either this is your fault why I'm like this, or these are all the other reasons why I'm like this and it's not my fault. So I never got an apology. And with my last boyfriend that I was with, I had told him at one point, I was like, I deserve an apology for this. Like that was because of what he told me. We were going through a rough patch in my relationship. And what he had told me, this was Mike, he had said, I had asked him, what can I do to, mediate this relationship? What do you need from me? Because I feel like I'm just like dogging on you and I want to know like what am I doing wrong that you need from me that I can improve on and be better at to make our relationship work. And it was I was trying to have a very sincere conversation with him, and he dead ass goes, well, you've gained some weight. And I cannot tell you, one, how hurt I was by that statement, and two, how infuriating that statement was, how mad I was about it. And I've always been someone when, something happens to me that upsets me, I very much shut down. Like I go nonverbal, I shut down, I don't want to talk about it, I don't want to deal with it. So that's how I dealt with my problems back then. I've gotten a lot better at it since then through very many years of therapy, but back then that's how it was. And so I was very upset about that. And when I told him, hey, when I finally was able to, calm down, regulate myself and have a conversation with him, I said, hey, I don't appreciate what you said. Like that wasn't called for. And I think that, you should apologize for that because that really hurt my feelings. And he goes, well, I'm not going to apologize if you tell me to. And I'm like, so when are you going to apologize for it? He goes, when I feel like it. And I was like, oh, okay. Why? Like, I need an apology because that was rude, and you need to acknowledge that that was rude and apologize. Long story short, I never got that apology. But that being said, now that I'm with Grayson and, we're very happily married for almost 2 months now. That's crazy. We have normal conversations that couples should have. We sit down, we talk about it. If if Grayson tells me, hey, that wasn't very nice, then I say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it that way. I'm sorry that I hurt your feelings. I'm sorry I said that. I won't do it again. Same thing goes for him. If he, does something that upsets me, I will say, hey, I didn't appreciate that. I would like an apology, and he apologizes. No hard feelings. So I've gone through a lot of trial and error with my life. I've been through a lot of therapy dealing with, the loss of my mom, dealing with all of the narcissistic relationships that I've been in, just dealing with, life in general. And so there's a lot of trauma that I was holding on to, a lot of learned behavior from that trauma that I was holding on to and needing to break free of. And Grayson gave me that outlet to, one, have a safe person to talk to and to get those feelings out and feel validated, feel cared for, feel secure in that, I can have this conversation with you, that it's a difficult conversation, but you're not going to leave me after it. I'm going to lash out on you because, I'm triggered or whatever, but you're still going to be there for me. And that's not in a manipulative way or an abusive way. It's just, those are kind of the ebbs and flows of unlearning behaviors, especially ones that are born out of trauma. And so he has done the same. He's had other experiences, different experiences that I've had, but everyone has those. They have different experiences. And so he also brought, to the relationship, his traumas and his experiences. And, we were both safe people to each other that we could work those things out and talk through them and work through them. So and even now, I don't know if he 100% believes it, even though we're married. Again, that's another thing that's on him that, he has to think through and work through, because I, can only tell him so many times, like, I trust you fully. I love you. I'm not going anywhere. But I do think, there's just still a worry in the back of his mind that, he's going to say something that's going to get to me and I'm going to just leave. But again, there's only so much that I can say and reassure him about that that's not going to happen. But, he's still comfortable enough with me that he can still express certain things. He's worried about expressing them, but he can still do it. And I try to, make space for that, for conversations like that to be had. Anyway, I don't know the whole reason why I decided to go on this whole long tangent, but I just wanted to come on here. I'm so sorry. This is like almost an hour long video, but I just wanted to really come on here and say that, a lot has happened since a year ago. I honestly don't even think that I had mentioned in the last video that I uploaded before yesterday that I was even engaged. So I got engaged. I got married. And honestly, me and my now husband we're doing really well. Both of us have, worked really hard on ourselves, each other, our mental health, all of that good stuff. My life right now is in such a good place. Make sure that it stays that way, but my life right now is in a really good place and I'm really happy with it. And honestly, not that I haven't had time to make videos and upload videos. There are still other things that I'm trying to work out in my life. One of them is that I am perpetually exhausted. I don't know if that just comes with being older. I don't know if that comes with, whatever is going on in my subconscious brain. But I am very tired all the time. And not tired in the sense of like I could take a nap. When it's bedtime, I could sleep for 12 hours. I've slept for 13 hours before. And I could sleep for longer, but for right now, like, I don't know why, but I'm exhausted. I'm a little burnt out. I do love the job that I'm in. I know that I've posted before about it. I don't know how in depth I posted about it, but I do really like my job. I work in HR. The company that I work for is wonderful. They're fantastic. I do have, some complaints here and there, but not enough for me to, pack up and leave. One, my benefits are really great, and so I can't complain about that. We have unlimited PTO, which is a really big perk. And we have really great health benefits, which is also another really great perk. So I'm staying there for the time being for as long as I see fit. Like right now, I don't have any plans to leave, but again, who knows what the future holds. But my job is going really well. I come home, I have my normal routine that I do. I have just been putting a lot of effort into myself, into my relationships, not just with my husband, but with my friends. Again, this year, I really made a conscious effort to make more friends. Because honestly, before then, like, I have people who I would call my friends, but we did not like hang out. Like, we didn't talk very often. Like, friends from high school, we would not really chat, like not see each other very regularly. So they were still my friends, but we didn't hang out like ever. But I still love them. But I really made an effort this year to prioritize myself, my feelings, my relationships. And it's gone really well. And so another reason too that I haven't been posting a whole lot is, one, I'm tired, but two, the time that I would usually have to like film videos, edit videos, post videos, that's like, I mean, obviously because you're on YouTube, but other people who make careers out of social media, it is a full-time job. Like, it's very difficult to do it when you already have a full-time job, and you're also trying to prioritize a social life. So I would come home from work and wait for Grayson to get home. He doesn't get home much later than I do. We would sit on the couch maybe for like an hour. I would make dinner. We would sit back on the couch, watch our shows, and then I would get ready and go to bed. So that was like my whole week days. And then on the weekends, again, I would prioritize my friendships, and so I would try to make plans with my friends to hang out with them. We'd go see them on the weekends. Like this weekend, tomorrow, I'm going to my grandmother's, and then Saturday and Sunday, we're staying at my maid of honor's house. We're staying at his house with his girlfriend, and we're gonna, it's his birthday today, actually. But we're just gonna go and hang out with him for his birthday celebration. So my weekends have been very busy. And so I just feel like I'm at a point right now in my life where I don't dislike making videos. I don't dislike filming. I feel like I have, I wouldn't say a natural ability, but I'm very comfortable with it. I'm very confident in doing it. Even if I have, I did Twitch for a little bit, even if I have like 2 viewers per stream, like, it doesn't bother me. I don't care. I do it because I like it and because I enjoy it. And it's not that I'm not doing it because I no longer enjoy it or I no longer like it. It's just because I've just gotten to a place where it's not in my list of priorities. I'm not making a living off of it. I'm not losing money off of not doing it. So right now it's just not in my list of priorities of things to do. Maybe that will change. I don't know. But for right now, I don't necessarily plan on posting anything. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I may, just because like it comes and goes. I have episodes where I'm really excited and I really want to film something or really want to make content and create something. And then I go through like long periods where I just don't want to do anything. And maybe they're like mini depression episodes, but they're not terrible. I've had very major depressive episodes that have not been good at all. But these are just more of like, I'm tired, I'm exhausted, I just want to rest and recuperate and recharge. And I don't want to, sit down, put on a full face of makeup, pick out an outfit and sit down and film and then spend hours editing that video and then spend another hour, rendering it and uploading it onto whatever. And streaming is not necessarily as bad because, again, I can just sit here and have, this flow of consciousness. But again, it's time that I take out of my day that I could be doing other things. Like, we have a house. I've had a house, but me and Grayson moved into this house 2 years ago? Last year? No, 2 years ago. 2 years ago. We moved into this house. And we're trying to make it a home, We've been here for a while, but Grayson and I are both, working on managing our money, working on, doing things at a house that we want to do, saving up for things that we want. We're taking our honeymoon actually in January of next year because, one, it helps kind of spread out the cost of a wedding. Luckily, John and Debbie were very gracious and very generous and paid for a very big bulk of it. I want to say about 2/3, maybe a little bit more. Maybe 3/4. No, 2/3 is bigger than 3/4. I don't know. Don't come at me with math. I'm not good at that. But they paid for a majority of, our wedding expenses. And while we paid for some of it, it was just very generous of them to do that. And, even though, with that being said, we still paid a decent amount of money for the wedding ourselves, we would like to spread that cost out. So we're taking our honeymoon next year. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm really excited for it. And so maybe I'll film then. Maybe I'll vlog and I'll post something then. Maybe I'll do something around Christmas time. I haven't done Vlogmas in forever. So we'll just see. We'll just kind of see how it goes. But I didn't want to kind of leave people hanging about where I am, where I've been, what I've been doing, what I've been up to. I just kind of wanted a consolidated video on everything about who I am in general as a person, what I've been through in my life, where I am now, and what my future holds. And give you guys some closure, because I do think, honestly, like, I very much believe in closure, and I think that's a really difficult thing for a lot of people, is to accept, like, not having that closure. And so, like, there were people who, like TV shows or, you know, podcasts or whatever that I listen to and I watch, where it just ends so abruptly and you're like, what happened? And then you never hear anything about it again. And then it's like, not that it bothers you, but every now and then, like, in the back of your head, you're like, what happened? Where did they go? What happened to that thing? We've been watching Mindhunters, which is such a good show on Netflix. And then they stopped making it. And it's like on an indefinite hiatus, so I doubt they'll ever bring it back. But it was so infuriating because it left you on such, you know, a cliffhanger. And now it's just gone and you're just like, what am I supposed to do? And so I didn't want that to happen. Not that people are like on their edge of their seats wondering about, you know, what I'm doing with my life, but I just wanted people to have some sort of sense of closure that I'm doing really well and my life is going very well and I'm very happy with how things are. Also, to answer any, you know, questions about things, like, we don't plan on having children, especially right now. That plan could change in the future. Both of us are very content with not having kids. So who knows? Again, things may change. The future is the future and we never know what it has in store. So I'm so sorry that I started this to give myself something to do, but really I just wanted to sit down and talk. And so I have done my speaking. I really am thankful for the people who have been here from either the beginning or wherever you came into this channel, just because YouTube was a really great outlet for me for a really long time. Doing social media in general was a really good outlet for me to sit down and talk about things and have this kind of stream of consciousness, which I have with my therapist. But even that, like, I haven't been to therapy. We've cut down from, you know, having therapy once a week to having therapy once every 2 weeks, and now we're down to having it once a month. So again, I feel very confident in my mental health and the way that things are going, you know, and the way that I'm able to handle things and process things and, you know, regulate. And so I'm very proud of myself for that. I'm very proud for Grayson for the work that he's done in his personal affairs. And so I really am thankful for you guys for being there for me, whether you consciously knew that or not, but I'm very thankful to have had, you know, this outlet to sit and talk and chat and express myself and tell stories and do the things that make me happy and have people who are there to support it. And I hope that you all have a really wonderful life wherever you may go. For those of you who were like me or are like I was, who are struggling and who are trying to find some sort of meaning in life, it's not my place to say, you know, that things will get better, but I believe that things will get better. But really it's down to, if you want things to get better, you have to do things to help. There are things that are out of your control that you can't help. There are resources that you may not be able to receive. Will be the first person to admit that I have had a very privileged life for, you know, many different reasons. But I've just been able to do more than I know other people are able to do. And so it's really difficult for me to say, you know, oh, we'll just do this or just do that, because some people may not have those resources to do it. But at the same time, I know that it's hard and I know that it's difficult to dig yourself out of a trench with your, you know, bare hands, because sometimes people don't throw you a shovel. Sometimes they throw you a spoon, and sometimes you just have to do the best you can with what you have. And I know that's easier said than done, and I know that's a very difficult thing to do, but I really do hope that all of you out there have, some sort of closure in your life with whatever it may be, because it could be a small thing like wanting an apology from someone, but again, sometimes closure never comes, and sometimes you have to learn how to accept it and move on from it. A very valuable lesson that my therapist has taught me is being able to hold space for two things, for the good in things and the bad in things. Like this, like not the negative positivity and that like, oh, it could be worse, but at the same time being like, this thing that is happening really sucks. And also I can take this experience and learn from it. And so allowing yourself to feel both emotions at the same time and not guilt yourself into feeling bad about something, or guilt yourself into feeling good about something that you feel like you shouldn't be. So that is my 2 cents, which I'm sure no one cares about. But again, I'm very thankful for you all. I'm very happy to be with it where I am today. I really hope that you guys have just a wonderful existence, because I know I know some of your names. I know, some of your screen tags and all of that good stuff, but, I don't know you personally as people. But at the same time, I feel like I've shared so much of my life on YouTube that people have a sense of who I am. And you know what? That's okay. I don't mind not knowing every single person that follows me, but I do hope that you get a sense that I am genuine in my affections, and that I do wish the best for all of you out there in your endeavors, in your life, in your careers, and your relationships, because they're important. And even if you're struggling, I hope that one day you'll see that things are okay, and they may not be okay now, they may not be okay in a year, but eventually they will be, because that's how I felt, and I felt very lost. But honestly, looking back on my life, having such a deep feeling of sadness, being just stuck. I've been closing out this video for like 6 minutes now. I'm so sorry. I promise I will end it. But one last thing, I just remember like being in the throes of like being in a shitty relationship, not knowing what I'm going to do with my life, like not feeling loved, not feeling valued from the person that I really wanted it from the most, which was my partner at the time. And I just remember one night just, being, all of our bedrooms were upstairs. So being downstairs in our downstairs bathroom with the door closed and the lights off, and having so much pain and just bawling my eyes out and just begging anyone, God, whoever, to make it better, because I was in such a miserable existence. And there have been many times where I've considered no longer being here. But looking back on that now, it kind of baffles my mind, because it's really hard to see improvement when you're in the middle of it or when you're going through it. And I know that I have so much improving still left to do, but even just looking back to, a few years ago, how far that I've come with what I feel like, to me, at least at the time, felt like very minimal effort. Felt like I wasn't doing a whole lot. I felt like I wasn't trying very hard. But just putting in that mental effort, at least, to feel better about myself, do things that bring me happiness, regardless of what other people think. As long as I'm not hurting anyone else and I'm doing something that makes me happy, then that's important. Learning how to prioritize myself and prioritize my feelings, and, making myself happy and caring for myself and just loving myself in general has made such drastic improvements in my life that, I want for everyone else. And honestly speaking, I want for those people who have hurt me. There are times where I let myself be petty, and I'm like, well, I hope those people who hurt me are doing terrible. But that doesn't get you anywhere. And honestly, if they, choose to live in that existence where they can't, hold themselves accountable or do whatever, then that's on them. And that has nothing to do with me anymore. And I'm not going to waste my time and my effort, my energy worrying about it or wishing it were different. I hope that they, learn, and I hope that they can take those experiences and, go forward with them and make changes and improve their relationships with, the other people in their lives. I doubt it, but we'll see. Maybe I won't, but who knows? Hopefully they'll learn something. But even if they don't, again, that's not my problem anymore. So I promise I'm done. Again, thank you. If you've watched this whole thing, I'm so sorry. But I hope that you guys, have a good day. Have a good life. I'll see you around. Maybe. Who knows?